Hey, welcome back to the Infamous Podcast bonus episode, Talking the Snyder Cut. I'm Brian.
This is Darryl.
Darryl was obviously taking a drink when I threw it to him. I apologize.
Yes, I think you planned that perfectly.
I did without having to see you from miles away. I was like, I'm going to get Darryl to drink a drink and then throw it to him.
Are you the digital age Superman like Cyborg and just hacked into my computer?
I'm more like Superman, where I'm just listening to you from far away, and I'm just I'm dialed into your frequency to make, because I want to make sure you're safe, buddy. I do. I want to, if something's happening, I want to be there in an instant to get the shaky kid away from you before anything bad happens.
Yeah, I don't have the the emergency response button. So
you do. It's just what I did was I had it injected to the meaty part of your butt, and when you your heart rate really goes up when you're not at the gym, then I know something's going on.
I don't know if I'm that's touching or quite disturbing.
So I've told Haley for years that she has a GPS tracker in the meaty part of her butt. She gets so mad. Anyway, speaking of GPS trackers, this movie really needed a GPS tracker.
In what way?
Oh, hold on. It was just it's kind of all over the place for a movie that's 4 years old, to be honest. And you and I have very different takes on this, which is great. I'm actually really looking forward to this because, here's the thing. I'm over the moon that you love this movie.
Yeah, and I'm actually surprised that I loved it as much as I did, to be honest.
I've had a really hard time the last couple of days being out in public and people talking about the Snyder Cut and not just shitting all over it to ruin their norminess about it. I feel very much like Eric July with all of this right now. I just I don't know, man. So I told you I went back and re-listened to our original, not your and my, but the podcast's original Justice League review.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely had a recency bias to it because we recorded it the next day after seeing it. And I remember I was much kinder to it than I've been. And I had said I really enjoyed this. We got to go for free. I took you actually. And
yeah,
I'm definitely going to go and pay to see this. You know what I never did? I never paid to see it.
See it.
I did not watch it again until it showed up on HBO Now, and it had the leaving this month. So it had gone through its whole run, and it was the last day of the month that it was leaving. It's you know what? I'm gonna revisit this and see how I really feel about it because I enjoyed it in the moment for what it was, but I still was critical of it. But then I rewatched it. I'm like, oh my God, what was I thinking? What movie did I watch? Did I just have Justice League colored glasses on? I don't know what was happening there.
And I'm kind of in the same boat with that. It reminded me of my opinion on Suicide Squad, Last Jedi, X3, The Last Stand, where I saw it, and it's not that I thought they were great movies or anything, but I was like, oh, they were decent, And the further I got away from it, or in some cases, for example, Suicide Squad and Last Jedi, I saw again at the theater, my opinion of it continued to go down, and it was the same with the original Justice League, the Justice League.
Yeah, I love that, the Justice League.
Where
it's a great differentiator.
I honestly didn't watch it again. Now I watch bits and pieces here, the monument scene is still it was still great, and again, funny enough, it was a Zack Snyder scene, but I watched scenes here and there because there were some stuff I liked about it, but overall, as I thought about it, and then I actually watched it again last week.
Yeah,
I was like, man, this movie is bad. It's bad, and I didn't realize how bad it was until I saw what Zack Snyder did with his Grant. I'll bet Yes, I know. I understand. It was 4 hours, which it should have been 3 hours and 20 minutes. But
It could have been
still
under
4
three.
hours
It
long.
easily could have been under 3 hours.
I honestly don't think so.
I do.
No way.
I do.
No way. No. That's like saying Avengers Endgame could have been
They could
under
have
3
sped
hours.
up. They could have sped up some of the aggressively gratuitous slow motion to get some things done.
That was one of the things that there were scenes that were perfectly done with the slow motion, but then there were other scenes where I thought like, okay, we don't have to do this for 30
gratuitous.
seconds. Yes. So that's one of the things we will definitely agree upon. But
so I will say there are things about this I really, really did like, and we'll get to that. I will tell you, it's all in the last 70 minutes of the movie. I don't think that surprises you, but I will say with the first Justice League, right? There was just a lack of understanding of the characters and the world that had been built with these characters. In the Snyder Cut, there is a lack of understanding of these characters and what has come since the Justice League came out. A lot of things, they like changed some things about Mira. They changed some things about Aquaman that like are not a part of the Aquaman movie, so it's like, it leaves me questioning what is canon now. I think the interesting thing is James Wan, right, is the director of Aquaman. He did the Aquaman scenes.
He did,
at least in the Justice League version.
Oh, okay.
But he did that scene with Mira and Arthur where they're in the air bubble. There's that. But I think I just like one thing to your point about X3, I was not coming out of that movie a fan of it because of what happened to Cyclops.
Oh yeah. That is true.
I was ready to walk out when that visor hit the ground. Like literally, I was like, I'm out. This is fracking dumb. Anyway, all right. So my initial thought of the Snyder Cut is get the fuck out of here with the 4:3 aspect ratio, and especially the message before that said to keep the the creative vision of Zack Snyder. Creative vision is not in 4:3 aspect ratio. Just saying.
It's funny about that because for the first 2 minutes, it really bugged me, and then I completely forgot about it.
It bothered me the entire movie.
Yeah, see that. So. I thought it was when I first saw it, I'm like, this is really gonna take away from this movie for me, and it didn't. Which it didn't bother me at all, but I don't know why.
Yeah,
he did that way.
I don't know.
I honestly don't. I don't think it wasn't necessary to me. But again, it reminds me in a way of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And I've read this online that a lot of people couldn't enjoy it because of the way the animation was cut and all this stuff. And the same thing happened to me. The first 5 minutes of that movie, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to like this. And then I completely forgot about it.
So
I guess, my senses got used to what I was seeing and it didn't bother me.
So after watching it straight through the very first time, right? It bothered me. Watching it in 45 to an hour and 15-minute chunks the second time, it bothered me the whole time. Plus, I had to swap TVs today because the whole bottom third of my TV decided it didn't want to be in color anymore. It was just black. So that was fun. It was. Rude. I guess it's like a known So if you're out there, don't buy TCL TVs. Plain and simple.
That's a known issue?
I hated the TV since I got it. Apparently, it was a known issue, or it is a known issue now for the year and specifically the 55-inch one. And so I actually bought a much nicer TV this time and much nicer than I intended to buy. But it's a Samsung and the picture is glorious.
What size is it? The
55. Same. So.
Oh man, that sounds good.
I mean, it's just like that spot I have on the wall. It's like perfect. Like I could go a little bit bigger, but I don't want to. So anyway, but yeah. So the 4:3 really, really bothered me. The scream to start the movie, like anything you can do to make me forget about Batman versus Superman, you should do. And watching that scream, the scream literally heard round the world. There had to be a better way to handle Superman's death. I think during the scream, the only good thing that came about that was they added the Lex and Steppenwolf scene, without audio, obviously, to get some context for some dialogue later on in the movie and for kind of what was happening with the mother boxes and the Kryptonian ship. Yeah. And then I guess the last thing about the scream is how long did that scream take to get to Themyscira? Because it seemed like the scream got there, it woke up, and then they were fighting.
Yeah. So it's not that the scream, of the scream itself, let's go with that. That was one of those artistic.
By the way, spoilers.
Oh, yeah. A veritable array of spoilers. I was wondering when we saw the trailer what that meant. And it makes sense for what he did with the mother boxes and, why they decided to wake up later on and all that stuff. But again, I loved how the scene was played out. It was almost played out like one of those 3D murals, how you went around, Superman and Doomsday. I really like that. Like the scream itself was fine. I take it or leave it. It was important based on the mother boxes, but as far as the time lapse of when the mother boxes, hey, Superman is dead, this Kryptonian's dead, versus when Steppenwolf got the call or what have you. That's debate, and that's one of the things they don't do. And I think they did that, and a lot of movies do that with time. They don't tell you how, and that's sometimes to save their asses in the sense of, hey, this.
Well, like Chris Nolan, the last 45 minutes of Batman or Dark Knight Rises is a 15-minute countdown.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Time and space mean nothing to Chris Nolan. So,
like the only thing we got in this movie was that the first time the mother box was used by Silas Stone was over a year ago.
Right.
So that gives us at least a kind of like a ballpark figure.
Right.
But that's about it in that regard.
So some other things. One, we don't know how long Superman has been in business, in this world.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it's a year or two, less than 5 for sure, right? So like a lot of what's going on here, like we don't get any sense of this. We don't know how long since Clark died, maybe a year. But the whole Superman is gone, woe is us feels really unearned. And I feel like a really good thing that they could have done is instead of the scream turning the mother boxes on is like the world losing hope over Superman being gone, especially the heroes, could have been the thing that turned them on. Because like when Wonder Woman fights Ramsay Bolton and the terrorists, right? Like
Bruce Bolton.
Bruce Bolton. Thank you. Bruce Bolton and the terrorist. That's like a low moment, and not saying that Superman would have handled it any differently, but like it's just a reminder that like we've lost a hero, and all the other heroes have to work that much harder.
And to that point, it's one of those things like a good example of done right. And I'm going back a little bit to Falcon and Winter Soldier, is that because that the blip, which again, stupid name, it's been 5 years. It was 5 years where half the people were gone and then they came back, and it's been about 6 months. But in that 5 years, you have people who actually liked the way the world was then. And you understand because in the sense of it's been 5 years. So a lot of shit happens in 5 years.
Right.
I think, and again, I think part of what you're talking about, I think, is the failure of Batman v Superman, which I thought was an average movie. I mean, the ultimate cut, I thought the theatrical cut was a bad movie. In the sense of they try it in the beginning, I think in the beginning of that movie, to show all the things that Superman was doing and how people were looking at him as a god and all this stuff.
Right.
But it's still, that movie still didn't give us enough of a sense of how important he was to the world.
Right.
And this kind of, to your point where you were saying, the less that a movie can remind me of Batman versus Superman, the better. That beginning, what you're talking about, and how his death has affected the world, is again a failure of that movie, and it kind of bleeds into this one, in the sense of, well, how long has he been around?
Yeah, exactly. So then I think moving on, as like we get into the donkey ride through the mountains, one, it just reminds me that Zack would be a much better director of photography than he is as a full-fledged director. It's a beautiful looking scene, but again, it's completely needless watching Bruce Wayne ride a donkey through the frozen tundra of wherever they are. And, it could have just been like, seen him riding in on a donkey. There wasn't anything that gained from like understanding that is. And I think the establishing shot when he's on the mountains and you see all the icebergs in the harbor tell us enough of what we need to know without 5 minutes of Bruce Wayne riding a donkey through the frozen tundra of wherever.
Yeah. I will say, I
and
partially
the music
agree
during
with
that part was awful.
That is,
we'll
like,
get to the
one of
music. The music is a whole thing.
Yeah,
but
that's one of the few complaints like I really had issues with this movie, and it kind of messed up a couple scenes for me. But I will say that scene went on too long. But I actually like them showing some of the trek that he made. But yeah, they could have cut a little bit. They could have probably cut it in half. I would personally, for me, I would say cut it in half. And, just show one of those expansive shots, then show a shot of him looking down, down on the town, and maybe one more shot before that. It'd have been fine. But yeah, I can partially agree in the sense that it did kind of go on. It's one of the few scenes where I thought, okay, you can move on right now.
So I really like Affleck as Batman, and I like him even more as Bruce Wayne. It's a real shame that they didn't decide to put him in his prime. As Affleck, because Affleck he's a beast, man. He's a specimen, and when he's in shape, fuck yeah. So it's a real shame that they decided to make him kind of broken down Batman, like Clint Eastwood in The Mule. So, but when he finally gets there, the theatrics between Bruce and Arthur in the town tavern, I guess, was just a giant dick measuring contest. Like I liked some of that scene. I liked some of how the Justice League handled that. I like that it wasn't the jokes. I like this is what we saw from the trailer. But then, I didn't get the theatrics. Like he knew what was it. Arthur knew he was talking about and to him, and it was handled in dialogue later why he wanted to be left alone. And again, it was just a dick measuring contest that didn't need to happen. But
that actually, I would say that plays completely into Arthur's character, and I think it shows. I'm going to use your word, a little restraint on Batman in this, or Batman. I'll say Bruce in the sense that he didn't even. It's weird because I would assume most of these people know who the Aquaman is.
Yeah.
Because my original thought was he was. He doesn't want to kind of like out him and kind of put him on blast, but everybody knows.
Yeah.
So I don't know, if he was trying to go by the customs of that particular town. I'm not sure where it was, or what language they were speaking.
I'm just going to say the frozen tundra of wherever. So,
but yeah, I will say, just start off, the best thing about Bruce in this one is they cut out so many of his just forced and unnecessary jokes.
Yeah, the humor being gone made this a much better scene. And like, this isn't a bad scene, don't get me wrong. I think it just kind of went on a little too long and it kind of got draggy. When he pulls the money out, that was actually really funny. Like, I don't think it was intentionally funny, but it was funny because he's like, here you go. And then the little girl comes and takes it. Like, that was a great earned moment, right? I also think Bruce really just did a bad job of selling why fighting together is a good thing when he's like, I fought side by side with Superman, but he died.
Yeah, that's not the good example to take. It's like, that's my point.
Again, and then the ladies singing as Aquaman gently waded into the ocean in various states of undress was the dumbest part of anything Zack Snyder's ever done.
Yeah. So one of the things I wrote about this whole scene is, and again, I liked it. And I will say one of the few lines that I actually liked of Joss Whedon, and I'm fine with it gone, but when Aquaman says, the strongest man is stronger alone or something like that. And he's like, that's not how this goes.
Right.
But I did say on this, just on this whole first part of this first scene there was too much focus on the small town.
Yep.
And the singing, do they worship him? So in that regard, I thought that was kind of like
one, like she smelled his coat like she was like his wife or something weird. So I don't know.
Yeah. And this first part for me was a little bit stuffy in the sense of how it started.
Well, there was so much of the Justice League in there.
Yeah.
So I think that was part of it. It's like I thought we were going to see something different.
Yeah.
I will say Jeremy Irons is the best Alfred yet.
Love him as Alfred.
The chemistry between Jeremy Irons and Ben Affleck, Jeremy Irons and Gal Gadot,
and
Jeremy Irons and what little with Ray Fisher he has are great.
Yeah. I absolutely loved him in this role.
And so sorry, go ahead.
And we get so much more of him. We get how important Alfred is to the whole Batman thing, which we haven't like before. I mean, my gauntlets worked.
Yeah,
for example.
Right. That was great.
I love that
because like Michael Caine was okay. He was okay, right? He wasn't great. He kept trying to get him to quit, and was like the Yenta just always guilting him, because he didn't eat enough or whatever. He's not married. But yeah, so then we get the scene again, horrible music with Lois in the rain getting coffee. It's nothing but melodrama. That scene did not need to be in there at all. It didn't change any expectation that would have come later in the movie when she shows up at the memorial site there. It doesn't change any of that if, that happens 2 hours later when the cops like, oh, you're here every day,
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of debating in all these scenes with Lois. I had some question marks with a couple of those, thinking if you could have moved at least one of them, cut one of them, at least one of them out of there.
I have a note that says Lois's pity party goes on much too long.
Yeah. And the song itself, that's another mark I have for that. Right. It was just,
So, and then along with that, like none of the set pieces that Zack does ever look real. They almost look cartoony. Like if you go back to 300, you go back to Watchmen, you go back to Sucker Punch, right? And then not to mention BVS and Man of Steel. Like if there's a street, it looks fake because the majority of it is probably green screen.
Mm-hmm. So, in defense, I know that was the purpose. They purposefully did that in 300. I mean, that was.
Well, I get it. I get 300.
I get that. But I told you, was it last week or the week before? Why does DC? And again, not just his movies, but you look at Aquaman, and I don't mean the underwater part. I mean the parts when they're on watching the horizon or something. Mm-hmm. I can't remember Shazam as much. It's been a while since I've seen that. Wonder Woman 1984. There are so many instances in these DC movies when you look at what's going on screen, you can't help but say this has to be green screen, right?
Well, like it's the first Wonder Woman. Zack was very much involved with that movie, right? So it has the Zack Snyder stamp of color and filming, right? The second Wonder Woman movie, Patty made the same mistake that Joss did, which I have a note in this for later, but I'll get to it now. They overdid it on the color palette. They went too far with the saturation, where Zack doesn't go far enough with the saturation. We need to find a good middle.
You think they overcorrect it? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And it's not really, they're not overcorrecting because of Zack. It's just Joss tried to make this flowery look and feel to the Justice League. And that could only come from like an oversaturated color palette. Patty, I think, try to make like the idea of like hope and wishing and things like that to be a much brighter thing. And because so much of it was done outside, specifically in the desert, it was just, she went too far. Like if you look back again to James Wan's Aquaman, like when Arthur and Mira are in the desert, like Mira's hair really stands out, but that's because it was like neon red. But everything else is like her skin, her costume, or her whatever, her outfit, Jason Momoa, they're all like right in line with what they should look like in that sunlight, in that, in that environment. Even when they're in Italy, running through the roof, it still looks good. And that's, that and Shazam are really the only two movies who have like really done that well.
And I don't know. It's so weird that a whole movie or a movie universe has very similar issues in the CG department.
Because I mean, they use the same CG people. They're it's not that they're not good at their jobs. It's just they have the direction that they're given is to make things look murky and muddy. And like at one point, Angel came down and she's it was during the God fight. And she's like, "This is the worst CG I've ever seen." I'm like, "Well, you don't pay enough attention to Black Panther."
Or Battle of the Five Armies.
Oh, yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that one's bad, too. I mean, Black Panther's Tech Mobile level in a couple scenes.
How? But I don't even know how. But anyway.
Anyway. But, so, yeah, I think there's that. Then we get Wonder Woman. Same introduction. It's a little bit longer. But I think the terrorist fighting should have been what 1984 was about. Right? If you have her like stopping like terrorists, like post Iran Contra, things like that, helping to kind of try and stabilize things because of the message that the first movie ended on. I think it's better and it makes more sense for the time. I think the thing is nothing really changed in the Wonder Woman intro, except for she blew out the side of the building and she told a little girl in a really strange virtue signal that she could be a 5,000-year-old demigod if she wanted to.
So there was a lot, you saw a lot more of Wonder Woman. Like in the original Justice League, you didn't see nearly as much. And one of the things I liked about this scene is because so much of the time, and you're talking about the slow motion aspect of when she's blocking bullets. We saw a little bit of her blocking bullets and how fast it was in the first Wonder Woman, but those were revolvers and pistols. These were automatic weapons, and again, yes, it looked a little cartoony.
She
but
took a shot to the back though. Like she did not block all of them. She took a shot. Because she was like, "Ow!" And that was cool. That was a cool moment.
Yeah, and so I love that, and in the sense of how, and again, how fast she was, and as much as I love that scene in the town and the first Wonder Woman, it was a little bit too much slow motion.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And this, I like the balance between slow motion of how she sees things, and then her speeding up with how everyone else sees how fast she's moving.
Well, it was I have right here, it's the longest 13 seconds in cinema history. And because of the slow-mo, it seemed to go on for like 15 minutes, like the end of a close basketball game.
With all the fouls.
Right. Yeah. Then there's no way that bomb would have blown up 4 city blocks. And finally...
No, it would. No way. No.
She could fly at that point, right? Why didn't she fly the bomb away? And then 2, Gal Gadot is a great Wonder Woman, and she deserves better material.
Yeah, well,
across the board.
And again, I will say in this one, her character is kind of like basically support. I mean, she's in it a lot, and I absolutely love all the scenes with her fighting. It's just great. But from a character standpoint, she doesn't have a lot of stuff going on in this movie. She does have a great scene later on. I really like the scene with her and Aquaman and the Superman, when they're digging up Superman. She had a pretty decent scene with Batman, with Bruce Wayne. And we talked about, you mentioned the scene with Alfred, but overall, she doesn't have a lot of meat as far as what her character is going through.
Right.
And also, I do have to say, and I told you this, I love the fact of how Steppenwolf in one of the fights is taunting her
Oh yeah.
about how leaving the Amazons and stuff like that. And unfortunately, again, this takes place after that's the one of the things I have to get in my head sometimes is like, okay, this takes place after Wonder Woman 1984.
Right.
So like what happens to Wonder Woman after this? So,
right.
Which I'm curious about.
Yeah. And then, so this is the part where the music really got distracting, right? And then it carried on throughout the rest of the film. So a lot of times, so good music is a character that helps tell the story.
Yes.
Bad music is a detractor and a distraction. And like any song with a lyric in this movie is garbage. The version of Hallelujah during the credits is dangerously close to the brown note. That's how bad it is. That girl just warbles. She warbles every single syllable. It's like there's not just a sung syllable. Everything has to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, a great comparison of what you're saying is compare Guardians of the Galaxy and how the music is entwined in the story versus Suicide Squad. Again, individually, I love most of the songs from the Suicide Squad movie. Put into the movie, they took away from the scenes that they were in. They did not match up. They did not flow.
Part of it is because they used the same soundtrack as Guardians of the Galaxy. But like even Guardians of the Galaxy 2 has a great soundtrack. Like when Yondu and Rocket are walking through the Ravager ship, killing everybody. And, that was great. Baby Driver. The whole movie is predicated on the soundtrack.
Yes.
And it's a character unto itself. But yeah, I think for whatever reason, I don't know who picked the music. I actually have in here that Zack Snyder has really, really, really bad taste in music. So. And
the one thing, and before we go like the Wonder Woman thing, I love Wonder Woman's theme music. I love it. I just love that, but they added this, kind of almost like 300-esque, like lyrical element to the beginning of it that played every time, and that was just a big detractor from. I was like, every time that happened, it garnered an eye roll from me because it felt so out of place. Okay, if you would have done that maybe once the first time, when she's standing on top of the statue before she, takes down the terrorist, okay, that's fine. But the way they do it 2 or 3 other times during the movie, and it didn't work until it got to the regular theme.
Right.
But and again, that's another lyrical aspect. I don't care if it's humming or not or whatever. It just did not flow well with what was going on in the scenes.
Yep. So then we're back to the island of Themyscira at this point for the first time. This scene. So in the first movie, Themyscira. Words are hard. Oh, 33 minutes this time. I didn't have a words are hard on the episode this week. If you know,
I was about to say because it's been a week or two.
It's been a while since I did it in the first 10 seconds of an episode with Casey. But where was I? So we get back to the island. In the Justice League, the stuff on the island was about 5 minutes. The stuff with Snyder was closing in on 20 minutes. Again, could have been cut in half easily and still told the story it told. So here's the thing. This thing has been asleep for thousands of years. It wakes up and there's a boob tube. Super convenient, right? That is just there. Because it's on the scenic overlook of the ocean, like it's a museum or something. Not necessarily a hardened structure to keep a godlike creature from coming in and stealing it. When it wakes up, there's, we come back and there's like 50 Amazons guarding it. It's woken up. The last time these things were active, there was a massive war with the gods, men, Atlanteans, and Amazons, and Green Lanterns fighting Darkseid and his armies. Why was the Legion of horseback Amazons not stationed right there? Why were they miles away?
Yeah. Well, one thing is that So I'm assuming that when it first wakes up, there are like 50 Amazon warriors in the building, and I'm assuming they're there at all times just because of how they reacted.
Right.
It wasn't like they were milling about, having cocktails.
Well, that lady who was like coming up to check it out was like, she looked like the scaredest person ever in the movie.
Yeah, and my one gripe was like, why did you throw away your shield?
Yeah.
But anyway, so. And that's the
and you notice, hold on, you notice it was the black Amazon. They're like, well, somebody's gonna die. We're gonna send the black lady in to do it. It's like every horror movie trope.
She was actually one, I think, in
later. Yeah, she
later on in the Age of Heroes or whatever. But yeah, so this is again with the whole time thing, and again, this is a small gripe for me, not a big deal. But so from the time that they find it waking up to the time that our boy gets here, how long is it? I mean, it seems like pretty quick.
Yeah.
But again, like to your point, I will say the biggest, although I was going to say the biggest thing is why didn't they have it in an underground bunker of sorts?
Right.
But I guess their idea was, hey, if worse comes to worse, we can collapse the whole thing and kill whoever.
See, I don't think that was intended. I don't
know, because that's a tough one, because we don't know what happened on the inside of that.
Right. So I will say, when the boob tube came in and blew all of the Amazons back, all of those ladies on the steps are now paralyzed because they're not, but not like they're not like Wonder Woman. They can be shot. They are not invincible. They're not impervious. They can have bones broken.
Oh, absolutely. But
they're
I think
all paralyzed. They're all paralyzed at that point.
No, I honestly think, and again, we know they can be shot.
Yeah.
But I think they are much tougher and much stronger from a physical standpoint than a normal human.
Yeah.
One of the things that about this movie is there was a lot of kind of beats that reminded me of the Lord of the Rings, and in the sense of certain scenes, like when you're talking about them like getting blown back like that.
Yeah.
It reminded me of, the prologue to the first Lord of the Rings movie when Sauron, it comes in and, that power, and he just like everybody gets blown back when he dies.
Well, the elves, the men, the dwarves, the magical people, all got together. Yeah. I'll also say the "we have no fear" line belongs in 300, not Justice League. It was super cringe. The
I
gate.
Actually love that line.
I know the gate has to be.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know the gate has to be strong, but it's quite a production to close it. It was very cinematic to get that thing shut. Watching. Oh, here's my favorite. Watching it fall in the ocean was a tremendous waste of good running away time. On horseback, Hippolyta could have been a quarter of a mile away by the time Steppenwolf jumped up. It was all for naught. The scene fighting in the valley would have looked so much better without Zack's weird color palette. If it would have actually even been closer to Joss's oversaturation, that whole fight in the valley with the updated Steppenwolf would have looked amazing.
Oh, I thought it was amazing. The one part, and I think I told you this.
Oh no, I'm not saying it wasn't amazing. It would have looked amazing. It just, yeah.
Like the one issue I had with the CG there was when the Legion you were talking about that was miles away started tromping in. That looks so bad.
Yeah.
But overall, and again, we know that the horses were CG. We couldn't have somebody throw three horses like that, and we haven't
you
even
can't
talked about
throw 3 horses like that. What have you been doing at the gym? I'm so disappointed in you.
Yeah, I know. I have to do some more reverse hypers to strengthen my lower back and posterior chain.
I will say this fight is the definition of bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Yeah, and we haven't mentioned that yet. Like the difference between this Steppenwolf and the one we got in the Justice version is, I mean, it's not even funny how much better he looks.
This is a formidable character now. Not only does he look better and moves in the right ways, although he looks kind of like a cross between the Leviathans in the Avengers movie and the Destroyer in Thor.
Yeah, especially when you talk about how it looks like he has living armor on.
But the living armor is cool. And
absolutely.
I like how he looks alien and not human now. I thought that was an important change. But yeah, I don't know. It's just these people were supposed to be protecting this mother box. And they were very laissez-faire about it. I mean, I have the same thing to say about the Atlanteans too. They didn't do any better. Actually, I think the Atlanteans
had like 5 guards.
Right. The Atlanteans did worse because he just kind of came in and took it, other than when Mira tried to pull all of the liquid out of him, which was actually a cool scene.
Which was a pretty badass scene.
All right, moving on. All of the changes to Russia were way better. Getting the context of it was toxic, and that's why they wanted to be there, so that the mother boxes could use the radiation. That was a great couple lines of dialogue that happened a couple times in the movie to understand what was going on.
And how many times do we say this? Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 lines to make sense of something that otherwise you'd be like, why in the hell are they doing this? And that's all it took. That's all it took.
And they showed us. It wasn't telling. They showed us why it was that way.
Yeah.
The scene with Bruce and Alfred add a whole bunch of stakes to the hero's mission when they're talking about why they should track Barry down. It could have they could have left more of that in that was from the previous movie, while losing 2 to 4 minutes from Themyscira and with Aquaman in the village. I think there was some of that. Everything added with Star Labs, I think, was needed context that was missing in the Justice League version.
Yeah, and we also got a Ryan Choi too, which I don't know who that actor was. I liked how, and again, the only Ryan Choi that I've known as far as on the live action is, he was in the Infinity, Crisis on Infinite Earths, and it was played by a character that, like, he was Prophet in the Supernatural series. Right. I forgot the guy's name, but this guy was pretty. I really like this guy. But going back to the beginning of this part 2 with Age of Heroes, we also get Steppenwolf's motivations. Mm-hmm. He is not talking about mother this and mother that. Which
adding Desaad was amazing. Yeah. Was amazing.
Yeah, and I like, and again, the things that sums up what he's trying to do is when he says, after his first conversation, he's like, or after he, does, at the fortress and everything, he's like, he will see my worth again.
Yeah.
And we do get a little bit more down the road, which I'll talk about, because I loved how they don't not only made this guy or this creature formidable, but in the way they did his eyes when, and later down the road, where Desaad tells him, once, like, look, you conquer 50,000 worlds.
You owe us 50,000 worlds.
Then we may think about bringing you back into the fold. The look of, like, just hurt and on his eyes, and like you said, it's an alien creature, but his eyes look so human in that moment.
Yep. And
for a split second, I had just a little bit of sympathy for him. Like, 50,000 worlds. That's a lot, man.
Yeah. Right. Then the cranky museum guy was back complaining about everything. Diana's so wrapped up in herself at this point in time that she totally would have missed the whatever Monument of Heroes being on fire.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think. So I also think all of this would have been much better without this being the second time through the movie. But Diana Prince, Tomb Raider / evidence thief, was a great use of her. And I think Gal would have made an amazing Lara Croft at the same time. So,
yeah. Although I will say, I really loved Alicia Vikander as Lara Croft.
Oh yeah. I'm not taking anything away.
But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean,
I have another note here. The music choices in this movie are awful. Zack might have the worst taste in music ever.
Oh, Aquaman struggles with where he is in life. Wants nothing to do with Atlantis. Yep. And in parentheses, another poor song choice.
Yeah. I also have Aquaman throws a guy on the table and slams him so hard he probably has a concussion now after saving him from the boat. So he may have done more harm than good. Then he goes into the ocean with that horrible song about the tide.
Yes.
Why does Mira have an accent? but not in Aquaman. Why did Zack have her parents die when Dolph Lundgren is her dad in Aquaman? And Volko is 100% wrong here. I do, however, like that Aquaman's cave is Ariel's little cave of treasure.
So Volko is 100% wrong in
just
what?
Everything about him is wrong in this. He's so good in Aquaman, right? Volko is such a cool character in Aquaman, and he didn't, because these are new scenes.
Yeah,
these are new scenes. These weren't cut, right? They added a bunch of stuff. They did $70 million extra dollars.
Well, they said they only shot a couple scenes, and one of those was one of the ones I enjoyed, but they didn't need in the movie, was the nightmare scenario at the very end.
Yeah.
I
but like this, but no, I thought it was all wrong for the Willem Dafoe character that we got in Aquaman, who was a highlight of an okay movie. Like Aquaman is better than average. Aquaman is in my top 2 for DC EU movies.
After rewatching it, it's funny. Like after I thought so too, and then after I rewatched it last week, and I kind of forgot how. There's some good cheese, but there's a ton of bad.
Oh yeah, I mean I've ruined it for you by calling it water.
Oh no, you haven't. No, it's I actually enjoy. Again, I really did like Volko in Aquaman.
I don't know. I thought he was all wrong here. I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on it. It just felt off.
So this is one of those where it was necessary. It was absolutely necessary for Aquaman, for Arthur's journey to get to where he was.
Yeah.
And one of the things and one of the smaller things I will say it did was it gave him, because in the original Justice version, the first thing I thought when he came to their rescue is like, okay, where did he get the trident and where did he get his armor? Yeah, and that is what Volko gave him. But I mean, that's a small thing. Yeah. The bigger thing is he put in Aquaman's head, hey, this is going on. These guards are disappearing from the snatchers from, what did he call them? The snatchers from above or something like that.
The snatchers.
So again,
the snatchers were snatching.
Yeah. So again, that was one of those scenes that it wasn't as smooth as it could have been, I don't think. And also I wasn't a fan of how they, Volko's hair. That was a little bit too crazy, which again, that's a small thing.
Yeah.
But it was absolutely necessary for Aquaman to get from that point, not just to the end of the movie, but to, the point after this when he comes and he saves Mara's life. Like without that Volko talk, even though they do it in the Justice version, there's more depth to why he ends up getting pushed in this direction, why he ends up there, how he found out.
So I thought Atlanta, his mom, or Atlantia, whatever, left the trident when she was captured. So it's been with him and his dad the whole time.
Well,
but I don't know. I'm fuzzy on that.
Yeah, remember in the Aquaman movie, I'm trying to think of how it was, because he was showing him how to use the trident.
Right, he had it as a kid, using it, learning how to use it. Yeah. He's like, why can't I use a sword? And he's like, this is the weapon of your people. Your mother.
And I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the dialogue, because there was something about his mother's trident in Aquaman, but I don't. Yeah. I don't remember exactly what the dialogue was.
Yes. So anyway, then we get the gods fighting Darkseid scene. This was great. But this was like the second best addition to the movie, because they replaced Steppenwolf with Darkseid. We saw the anti-life equation on the ground. We got to see more of the Green Lantern. We got to see more of the gods, which is what it took to beat him. And then we had the moment. But my big question is, why is Darkseid got to bite off Maximus and his Kool-Aid with the dirt before fighting? I mean, he already kind of looks like a gladiator. Like, why is he picking up dirt like one of the best characters in cinema history?
This is one of those scenes where, from a movie, standpoint, you understand why it's short. But this is one of those, I would love to have seen a 20-minute version of this. Maybe not in this movie, but an extra or something like that, because this was so much fun. And this reminded me of the elves and men come together.
Oh yeah,
to
this
fight
was
Sauron.
yeah. So
including Apocalypse with Apocalypse, Darkseid with his mace when he's just splashing a dozen people at a time.
Yep. All right, so I also have, they never should have brought the anti-life equation into this movie, since they won't be making any more unless they're going to do it without Sack, which I don't think they will. And I also said this is the most important scene in the first hour, and we finally get the context we needed, even if the CGI is kind of crap.
Yeah, I thought the CGI was okay. Some moments were really good, and then other moments, just kind of like going back to the Amazon thing where Amazon Legion is coming. It's kind of bad. And so overall, I again, for your point, the scene is very important. It offers us, I don't know if it's the most important for our characters.
Yeah.
In the sense of, they now know the stakes.
Right. So, I mean, because she can now go back and tell everybody what she does. So,
and again, one of the things I didn't say is when you were talking about, you didn't know what was canon. Basically, per Zach, he says he knows that this movie is not canon.
Yeah.
So this was what his at least a good portion of his vision was for this movie.
I'm just surprised at how much of the Joss movie is in this movie.
Well, it's, again, he used everything in the Joss movie was from what Zack Snyder shot.
But there were people who were saying like Joss only used like 10% of what Zack shot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, that whole 10% thing. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm just, it's just based on like reports of what people were saying and stuff like that. Look, this is a better movie, hands down. It does not change the fact that it was built on a foundation of sand with the Man of Steel, which was never meant to be the opening salvo of a shared universe. It was meant to be the opening salvo of 3 Superman movies, and Warner Brothers got greedy. They actually, no, let me rephrase that. They didn't get greedy because Man of Steel didn't make a whole lot of money. They got jealous and they wanted to be Marvel, and they did what DC has continually done in the last 10 years. And they take shortcuts to try and be what Marvel is, whether it's in the movies, whether it's on TV, whether it's in the comics, and they fail every time.
Yes, absolutely. And to your point, again, some of the, there's no doubt this is a better movie than Justice League or than the Justice version. Yep. I actually think it's a good movie itself, but some of the issues with this movie, and it goes back to what you just said. A lot, especially in the beginning part of this movie, some of the issues come from how Batman v Superman was handled and the things that went on in there. And again, I think this is a much, much better movie than Batman v Superman. No, I mean, I agree with you there. I think the next scene that comes after this kind of exemplifies everything I'm talking about. And it's everything with the Flash in this movie, to me, is garbage. Ezra Miller is the exact wrong actor to play Barry Allen. This whole Iris scene that we got was completely unnecessary. It should have been saved for a standalone Flash movie. A truck driver dropping his food and then taking his eyes off the road while driving through a downtown area. That's not going to happen. For like 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's never going to happen. That was just, and then it was all, again, gratuitous. Again, the music was off-putting and distracting. He has lightning shooting off of him. Like, this version of Flash has lightning shooting off of him completely uncontrolled in all directions. He's killing people as he flies through towns. I don't understand how a company that owns the IP can get a character so wrong as they've gotten the Flash wrong. And the other thing is Ezra Miller does not know how to run. When he throws his arms out like he's swimming or drowning to run, and it just is, it is so off-putting, and I don't like his voice or face.
So it's funny because I agreed with you in the Justice version. I have almost done a 180 on him from what I saw in this movie. Which, that's one of the biggest surprises to me at all, like in this whole movie. First of all, I will 100% agree. That scene with Iris is unnecessary. We did not need that. We did not need that. They should have just left it with, we see him the first time talking to his dad in prison. That would have been fine.
Yeah.
Also, what it takes away in a little bit is the sense that when we get Victor Stone's origin, it happens because it's a car accident.
Right.
So you have another car accident for this other hero to meet his, I don't know, soulmate, whatever you want to call it. It's just a little too much. So that's an example of one of those things I thought should have been cut. Like it wasn't necessary. It took away from his character. And I mean, the whole hot dog.
The whole dog walking thing was stupid.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like the whole point of that was the visual of his gym shoes exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they could have done that at any time in the movie.
Yeah. And I will say, I've always thought the whole lightning was cool, but like, dude, sometimes I'm going to use your word, restraint. Just because something is cool on screen does not mean one, you should use it, and two, it's good, practical for the character, especially a character that, like you said, is running through the streets, saving people.
Well, when the show of the same name on the CW does better CG with the running, that's an issue.
No, they don't.
Anyway,
they do not.
I mean, he looks better running, and he's got
no.
the yellow streaks that follow behind him are not lightning that are doing damage.
Yeah, and again, the way they do it with Barry on the series is, yes, you see his body, the lightning charge through his body, but it doesn't shoot out everywhere.
Right. Yeah, so I don't care for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then sorry, go ahead.
Let me go with Ezra Miller real quick. Again, I thought he was whiny in the first one, and it was too much trying to be funny. And he didn't have any moments where it was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, like character moments. He had several character moments. I love his conversations he had with, some were funny, like with Aquaman, but and also Victor Stone. But I like that they actually toned down he wasn't just comic relief. And he was, again, he was the most important part of the team in this movie,
which,
as you'll see what happened.
And they did a better job by not making him a bumbling oaf. He still had the one scene where he tripped. But also one of the things is, outside of Wonder Woman and Aquaman, he's had his powers the longest.
Yeah,
as far
I would
as things
assume
go,
so, because
so
I know we know Victor's had his for about a year.
Yeah. But it seems like Barry's Barry's had his for longer. Who knows? Yeah. Again, the timelines are murky.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things I wasn't a fan of, is how they would play his tripping over stuff for well, it was that one instance where he tripped, and I was like, you didn't need that. But overall, I think this movie did more for his character, for me, because I did not like him one bit in the first one,
right?
To go on to almost saying, hey, now I still don't know if I want to see a Flash movie with him.
No, not at all.
But him as a part of an ensemble cast, it actually worked for me. But again, just because you can work in an ensemble cast,
right,
does not mean it's going to work for a movie, for a 2-hour movie, to see him, front and center. I don't know if Ezra Miller is that guy for me to be front and center for a movie. Yeah. Even though I loved him in this, I don't think he's strong enough to be front and center in a Flash movie.
Right. So coming out of this, we get Steppenwolf pulling some Atlanteans out of the sea. He throws the guy against the rock, and I'm pretty sure that guy would have been brain dead with all the blood that you saw. But the best thing is they used a little Starro to read his mind. Like, so that's not how Starro works, but like I'm assuming that's what it was, because that's what it looked like. It was like a mechanical version of a Starro, but whatever. Then we get Ben and Gal working together right out of this. And they have great chemistry. And my note here, because you told me about the Bruce and Lois thing. So I said Ben and Gal have great chemistry. Thinking that Zack wanted to hook Bruce and Lois up makes me want to have him not do any more movies ever again. So jumping through, then we get to the meat of Vic, which I thought was really cool. The only problem with Vic that I had Oh, I had a couple of like minor. Well, I had one big gripe and then a couple minor gripes. My big gripe is I'm not sure anyone involved with the filming has ever played or watched football. Ray Fisher carries the ball like Tiki Barber and would be a fumble machine. Vic's mom standing up for him to going in hacking because the girl's house burned down seemed kind of off. And in a movie of superheroes, the hardest thing for me to believe that Ray Fisher was ever a football star.
Well, Ray Fisher is built like a football star.
He's built like you know what? There's a lot of people who are built like a football star.
Oh, absolutely.
But the way he carried the ball was like it was way out. Like it was like
So
that was the worst. That was horrible.
So my biggest issue with the football scene where they said it was 4th and whatever, which okay, that's fine. But they said it was at the 42-yard line.
Yeah,
and he ran for like 15 yards for the touchdown. So again, in the sports, I find stuff like that in movies, and I just roll my eyes.
So I'm curious if it was Ray Fisher that jumped over that guy, or if that was like a stunt double who learned to walk that day. Because like,
and again,
yeah,
we're talking about the slow motion. We didn't need slow motion in that.
We didn't need that. We didn't need the football scene at all. Yeah, we really did. So it took away. It actually like. As much as I have enjoyed Cyborg's redemption throughout the Snyder Cut, this whole interaction from that to him smugly sitting in the office to his mom, lecturing the dean, to what college kid drives home with his mom, after a game, because that's when that happened. There's a lot of sloppy writing here. They wanted her in the story, and again, why does no one in this movie watch where they're driving?
Yeah, and that's with a lot of the whole driving thing. Like that's almost a trope now with superhero stuff. But
it was an interesting way to make him a triple amputee.
Yeah. So the one biggest issue I had was not the football thing, although they irked me. Mm-hmm. And not even the driving thing, him driving it home. It was the conversation between the dean and his mother. Yeah. When she was excusing his behavior to help someone. They could have done a much better. So they were basically trying to establish him as a veritable genius. Yeah. There are other ways to do that.
Not like, he's a criminal, but it's okay because he helps someone.
Yeah, he hacked your computers and he helped change his friend's grade. Like, that's expulsion right there.
That's criminal activity. Sorry.
So So that was a terrible way to make that point that he's a genius and he looks out for people, whatever, or tries to look out for people, even if it's the wrong way to do it.
Right.
But overall, after watching this, I see why Ray Fisher was pissed off.
I do. I get it, man. I 100%.
He was the heart and soul. Like his emotional journey in this movie, like that's what one of the big things that was missing from the original. Yep. There was no heart in that movie. It was just a series of events.
I really liked Cyborg in this movie. Like I'm calling him Cyborg again after this. The tape recorder should have been an MP3 player because there's no way he's able to put a tape together in the epilogue.
I was gonna ask you that. Like, is he like how? That would have made more sense. To me.
And then I feel like I've seen the flight training scene before. I'm not sure where. I think it might have happened in the other company's movies at some point. In 2008 in Iron Man. That's where it came from. It just hit me. There's that. And then last thing. Sorry. Two things. A little too much about why he's all powerful, and with great power comes great responsibility. Again, ripped off from Marvel. And his sonic cannon is kind of weensy.
So I loved almost everything about Cyborg, other than what we talked about how he got to pre triple amputee, which wow, I mean,
like I said, that was a really interesting way to get him there. So
I'm just talking about when his father had him just like up on the board or whatever, just hanging out with.
Yeah, it's like how very Dr. Mangala of you, Silas Stone.
But I really liked how that scene where and again, it was actually one of the few voiceovers in this movie that I actually liked was
Joe
how
Morton
Silas
has
was.
that voice, right? He's just got
Yeah,
that great
and
voice.
yeah, that's true. And
I'm all
how
in
he
on
was
Joe
telling.
Morton. I love Joe Morton. Go watch Eureka.
Yeah.
If you like Joe Morton, go watch Eureka.
Oh, I forgot he was in that. Yeah.
Or actually, if you like him, go watch this movie this TV series. It was also a TV movie called Viper.
I forgot he was in Viper too. Yeah. Dude.
I'm a Joe Morton stan.
Dude, you are seriously like bringing back memories. I used to love Viper.
I love Joe. I anytime he shows up in something, I'm watching this because I like him. So he's never been that guy to me. It's like that's Joe Morton.
Yeah. But I love this story of Cyborg because when we get to him and when we see him with his father, he is so angry because he blames his father for his because he even says it. He was like, if you came to my game, mom would still be here now.
Yeah, like it because he would have been driving and the mom wouldn't have been because she seemed to like be pretty like self-sufficient, like I'm gonna drive, I'm all right, like.
And he was throwing digs. He was like, because when his father's like, monsters are here, he's like, you should know about monsters, especially creating them.
You made one.
I mean, it's like,
just no one watches the road though when they're driving. It's just such sloppy riding.
No, so that I mean, how many people die every year because they're not watching the road? So
yeah.
But I mean, it's just when you kind of concentrate it on a an origin story, it's a little bit it's a little bit tropish. But I just loved how he's so angry with his dad because again, when you're talking about the tape recorder, where he's like, so I was talking to you as a scientist, but as a father, and then he crushes. He doesn't want to hear about it. Yeah.
Well, he's a double dad because he birthed him and then he birthed him.
Which was
with two different mothers. Like, so I don't know. There's commentary in there somewhere. Too.
Okay, I didn't even think about that.
Anyway, I wrote that down. I wasn't gonna say it, but you kind of made me go there. All right, so moving on, we get the Flash in jail. So I just have this bit of commentary because I love Billy Crudup as well. He'll always be the movie Steve Prefontaine to me. Sorry, Jared Leto. But I have here, SAC uses too many of the same actors over and over. Billy Crudup is great, but he will always be Dr. Manhattan when in a Snyder color palette. This Henry Allen even has the same voice cadence like when Dr. Manhattan talks to Silk Spectre. And it was really, really hard to think of him as Henry Allen and not, Dr. Manhattan in this moment, and I had that same issue with the first time around too.
So I have no problem with him being in Henry Allen, although I'm the opposite. Like when I think of Henry Allen, I always think of, I forgot his name, that plays Henry Allen
Wesley
in
Shipp.
the Flash show. Wesley Shipp, yeah. John Wesley Shipp.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
And my note for this section was, this was a better intro to the character than the whole Saving Iris scene, and it matched the tone of this part of the movie.
I would agree with that. I would 100% agree with that. But again, we had the Iris thing, and it ruined it.
Yeah, we did not need Barry to see Barry before this scene right here. But
yep.
and again, that leads right. I think that leads right into Ezra meeting, or I said Barry meeting Bruce, which it's very similar to what we saw.
That was lifted. There was nothing different there.
There was not much change.
They even used that stupid snack hole line. I'm a snack hole. Yeah, you're some kind of hole.
Yeah.
So Diana looking for Vic this time around is more in line with how a hacker would act, right down to the fonts that he used, which I thought this was much better. Their first meeting was better this time, and Vic kind of came off as a little like proto-villainy here, like giving that lady the $100,000 and all of that stuff. I do wish he would have completed his armor at this point, right? When he showed up to meet her, like it would have been cool if he would have kind of put the finishing skin that we never got in this cut.
And honestly, I kind of thought that's what was going to happen in that scene, just by how with the overview, how he's talking about all this stuff you can do. I was waiting for that to happen, and that was one of those little disappointments because I really like at the end of the Justice League version how that suit looked
Well,
or
it's
how
because
his armor
Joe
looked.
Morton,
'Cause it
he was working with his dad. Like, Joe
yeah.
Morton didn't die this
So
time around, or that
one
time.
of the other things that I really liked here was there were a lot of things that paid off down the road in this movie then that we obviously didn't get in the Justice League version, and we haven't. I mean, in other movies too, just in general, in the sense of and this one of those things where Alfred is working on the gauntlets, and it also does a good job of showing just how vital Alfred is.
Oh yeah.
Everything Bruce is doing.
Perhaps he needs a lasso in black.
Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah,
That's great.
that was funny. And like you said, I like that chemistry between Gal and Jeremy Irons as well. And he had some good moments.
So hold on, real quick, because we kind of skipped over something important. Vic hides the mother box in his mom's grave.
Yes,
and I have a note here. There's more graveyards in this movie than a zombie movie.
Yeah.
So
there's quite a few.
But I thought that was interesting, and is the stench of his dead mom gonna hide the smell of the mother box? I mean, it seems like it's kind of like like regular humans from the Defense Department stumbled upon the buried one from 5,000 years ago. Like,
so
yeah.
The funny thing about that scene is how it's in a bag. He opens the bag, and then he puts the mother box with the open bag in the hole.
Right.
Like, so you thought he was going to take it out of the bag and then just put the mother box in there.
No, he just
like,
he wanted to put his two moms like together because he loves them both. One father, two moms. It's so weird.
But going back to that scene real quick, where the scene between Diana and Victor, that was again one of those slow. That sounds negative when I've said slow, but it was one of those where something is injected into someone's psyche, like in the sense of what Wonder Woman says to him about learning how to open back up again.
Yep.
She plants that seed that bears fruit later on in the movie, and you can see it a little bit in his eyes where he kind of sees it, but at the same time he's still so angry.
His eye.
Yeah, his eye. I'm sorry. Yeah, his eye. He's so angry that he needs to. He's still not in the mindset where he can fully digest what she said.
Right.
So, and that's one of those moments, these little lines here and there between characters that pay off.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep. Then we get more mother box stealing, heisty goodness. Atlanteans and Amazons don't really know how to guard things. The Atlanteans speaking dolphin to each other was super cringe.
That was really,
but it made up. It made up for it when Mira tried to pull all the liquid out of Steppenwolf. But then they lost it again when Zack Snyder got all of the Aquaman history wrong, with Mira's parents and all of that stuff.
So going back before that, one of the other things talking about what pays off later is. Ryan Choi talking to Silas about the electron laser and how it superheats dense metal from the Kryptonian ship. That again pays off when Silas does his sacrifice. It's funny. I liked Mara in her pseudo British voice because using that accent, because it kind of for me it took away from the Amber Heard showing that she's not really a good actress. And
I just saw Madonna.
Her normal voice.
I just saw Madonna.
So
it was like the fake Madonna accent.
But yeah, to your point, I love that scene where she actually uses her power like someone that can control liquids would use it.
Yeah.
And at first, it's funny when you see it. At first, it's just clear liquid coming out, and then you see the blood coming out of him, and that's when he kind of throws her to the ground.
Oh yeah. Then we get the whole, saving the Star Labs people. I have here, Barry in the stairwell, like cheering people on to go was like a bad video game. When you're trying to go somewhere and like the NPC, like, companion characters are like, get moving. You can do it. Let's go.
Gosh.
And it's like, man, exactly somebody just put a high-speed bullet through his brain. I think adding to this more to the Seward fight made sense, but there was way more that should have hit the cutting room floor for the rest of the movie. Again, just things that could have been cut. Because things like this actually made more sense and had them working together. And, Ben Affleck had a Thor line later on in the movie where he's like, well, he's never fought us before. Well, he beat
Not
you
Us
in the
United.
sewers. Then Not Us United, where Thor's like, well, he's never beaten me before. Well, he's never beaten me before again. So, it's like,
so,
yeah.
For me, one of my favorite scenes is, first of all, I love this fight scene. I love how they work together, and when they got separated, and I just love everything about this scene in the sewers, and I'm glad it was extended. But one of my favorite scenes probably my favorite scene for Barry is when he saves the people from the falling debris.
Yeah, and
you see how you see it from their point of view, so how he's moving and just knocking all these debris out of the way. Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. It was a cool scene. It was much better than the first time around, because the first time around had too much of the Nightcrawler. There was that. So,
and it also made sense this time around when Cyborg took over the Nightcrawler, because it kind of short-circuited.
He also jumped into the bottom of it, got in it, fixed it, flipped it over. That made way more sense. So then they do what they do. The next scene we get is Lois with Martha Kent. This scene was really strange. Martian Manhunter should have 100% joined the fight. When Lois goes back to Smallville with Clark, why wouldn't she thank Martha for helping her get out of her pity party? I felt like this was a gigantic, just multiple plot holes that were introduced into the story.
So before I get to that, one of my things I like about, this section of right before that scene we were talking about is when they get the mother box, and they're talking about it, and I love the explanation of how they're talking about, how this mother box can make, if a house on fire turns to smoke particles, that mother box can, turn the smoke back into a house, which is great. And then this is one of those moments I really love Ezra Miller's, where Barry's like, we're all thinking it, but I'm not going to say it. And right before he says that, you hear the musical cue of Superman's theme song.
Yeah.
And I think that, some of these, and this was one of the few things where it was up and down with the musical cues. Almost every musical cue that had lyrics was bad.
Yes.
But when they used the characters' theme songs, they did it a lot of times they did it in such a good way. And this was one of those examples. And then, of course, Cyborg shows, does a hologram of Superman. Love that. To your point about Martian Manhunter, I thought that was more of a great Easter egg surprise, WTF. That's awesome.
So,
but from a story standpoint, look, okay, fine. Martian Manhunter still doesn't want to join the fight.
Right.
I think he should have. He probably would have. However, I can argue that for a reason why he wouldn't want to join. Although, if you think, I don't know if he knew the exact, the stakes that were there.
I think he did. I think
that's the one thing I
have thoughts on him that I'll share later. Okay, I will say I thought the initial CG when he changed was bad. I also think the general from the Man of Steel was never actually meant to be Martian Manhunter. This was a fan theory that people had.
Really?
This is a fan theory made true, just like the Snyder cut. So this is a very meta Easter egg.
Yeah. Again, him being the general, I'm fine with, because John Jones in Supergirl is the general.
He was a cop. He was a cop in Denver.
He was a cop in Smallville.
Yeah, well, no, I'm saying he's always been law enforcement of some kind.
Law enforcement, yeah.
So except for when he retires and becomes an old Chinese man. So in Justice League Unlimited.
I was about to say, okay, that's interesting. But to your point, I don't think that's something that Lois would not mention when she sees Martha. I never
hey, thank
said
you.
that.
I never said thank you for getting me out of my pity party. What are you talking about, you crazy bitch? Give me back my ring.
Yeah. So in that regard, that was a little.
It was just I don't know.
It was just kind of the Marsh. I loved it as an Easter egg, but what they could have done if they would have if they wanted him in this movie, they could have just had him at the end scene or something like
where
that.
they had him
or whatever
at the end of the movie.
So
So
again, this was one of those where I didn't think this was really necessary.
No.
Yes, it does. It was necessary in the sense to get Lois out of where she was, but I think they could have done something else for that.
They could have, like, again, like taking out the horrible "you're the thirstiest woman he's ever met" line of dialogue. Like, it could have been them meeting at the Daily Planet where she's in a funk and she's not like writing anything, she's just bothering everybody. You know, so there's that. But so then they decide they're gonna save him and use the mother box, and the Flash is gonna use lightning. This scene was almost exactly the same, except when Vic plugged into the Kryptonian ship, he got a vision of the future, of the nightmare future. And the coolest visual was Superman holding Lois's burnt skeleton, like Amperu style, and then Darkseid coming up behind him, like giving him a consoling, shoulder, like Joe Biden-esque, like sniff.
Yeah, it was almost like when it almost reminded me of when Thanos stabbed Tony and he just puts a hand on his head, like you did a good job, kid.
Yeah, nice try, Slugger.
And in that scene where Cyborg, he says no.
Yeah,
because he that was just such an overwhelmingly terrifying moment.
Yeah, and then Barry goes,
and then Barry's like,
because Barry doesn't listen to anybody.
Go.
So,
and again, this is one of those instances of where I thought the slow motion was too slow motion-y.
Yeah,
is where
honestly that scene is much cooler if he just runs super fast and touches it and everything happens. Yeah. So anyway. When the cube goes flying, shouldn't one of them try to track it down? I mean, Batman was just hiding in the shadows. Why didn't he go get the mother box?
Yeah. Although, and it was funny because in the original version, what you get is a boom tube opening in the ship.
Right.
And then everybody's like, oh, he's gotten the mother box.
Right. They're like, oh, okay. He's got it now.
Yeah.
Because it landed on that car. It wasn't Silas stealing it. I do have one question. With the fight between the heroes, that went down exactly, except for the "Do you bleed?"
Oh god! And the jokes Batman threw out.
Oh, and I'm jossing. I'm jossing everywhere. I'm jossing all over my pants. Anyway, how did Wonder Woman know his name was Kal-El? Did I miss something? Did that happen in Man of Steel?
No, I think it might have happened in...
Did the lasso tell her that as like a reciprocal thing?
It might have... that could have been, but I don't know enough. I don't remember enough about Batman v Superman. It's been so long since I've seen it.
Or in Man of Steel, did Lois write that? Like, as like, he's Kal-El, the last son of Krypton, in his like...
Oh, when she wrote her story?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So, honestly. Because she's like, your name is Kal-El. You're the last son of Krypton.
Yeah. So, but I and again, the way the rope works sometimes, I'm not exactly 100% sure how much she can get from that in the sense of the truth versus someone having to say it or whatnot. But yeah, there were a couple of different like angles for scenes, and there was the addition like Cyborg trying to keep Kal-El at bay, and then his little baby arms trying to punch him in the face.
Those were kind of creepy. Hilarious. Well, because they came back against Steppenwolf too. They were really ineffective. So I still love that Superman stops the one trick pony and her X-beam when she smashes the gauntlets together. Batman 100% should have worn his brown pants that day. And then I have with Bats and Lolo calling him Clark, they kind of blew up his secret identity.
Yeah.
And then finally Silas Stone's death added a much needed stakes and motivation to this movie.
Yeah. So a couple things. One of the things I had a problem with Wonder Woman is they had her use her bangles way too often. I mean, I know they're powerful and everything, but I guess it's just the effect of how she does it, where
it's her go-to move. Like, she did it 5 times in this movie. She did it more than once an hour.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I highlighted, where it was just like, less is more and all that stuff. Bruce's gauntlets, they actually come in handy, and I love Alfred said that, like, I think it was like in the fight in the sewers where, like, they work.
Right.
Lois basically saves the Justice League because she came for a last time.
But she calls him Clark in front of all these police officers.
Yeah, the cops and which again.
And the bystanders. Why are there bystanders? Why didn't the cops set up a perimeter?
Oh, also, why are you still pointing a gun at Superman?
Well, why are you shooting Superman? Like that. Yeah. That's my question. Bullets don't work. Why are you shooting them? Yeah. Are you firing kryptonite bullets? No, because kryptonite does not exist other than that little bit that Lex had. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
And I think it was synthetic.
Yeah. So Silas, basically, giving his life up for that, man, that was such a touching moment, because again, when we first meet Silas and Victor is so angry at his father.
Right.
And
we didn't get that in the first movie. We did not get, he wasn't that angry at him where he wouldn't even look at him. Or at least if he was, it wasn't obvious.
Yeah. And then we get slow, methodical steps towards maybe a resolution with them, because he says, I didn't think you would come for me. And then, in the sewers, and Vic said, of course, you're my father.
Right.
Even though, he does it. Yeah. He says it almost matter of factly. And then when they get into the Kryptonian ship, they exchange a mutual nod when, Silas kind of covers for them, but he never gets to make true amends with his father.
Right.
And so watching his father sacrifice himself like that that was gut wrenching.
Yeah.
And I love, and then he goes, Captain America, let's go find this son of a bitch.
Yeah. So, I thought that was great. Then we're on the Kent farm again. So we're on the Kent farm again. In the original theatrical cut, it was too long. In the Snyder cut, it was still too long. It was too much. Then we have the Batcave scene again. This was much better this time around, because Vic is actually like trying to figure out how to make the fox or whatever it's called fly. And then the snack hole is eating, and Aquaman's like, I never said I didn't care.
Yeah, I love that part.
That was a really good scene. That was actually the only scene I liked Ezra Miller in the whole movie. I always loved Ezra Bridger. Then we get Soups walking through his ship. We have a great My Two Dads scene with the voiceover of Jor-El, and who's always awesome as Russell Crowe as Jor-El is always awesome, and Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, who's still a monster. I like the what's your loadout gonna be with the costumes, like how he's walking down, and it's like it's very much like Cher in in Clueless with the closet, where it's the automated closet that picks what she's gonna wear for the day. And then finally the perfect one comes out, and then we get him going up and charging up in the sun, and finally this is Superman. That was my thought.
Yeah. I can't wait to get to this is Superman part. But I love that Aquaman scene. And again, I think this is one of those subtle moments where, Zack Snyder is not necessarily the most subtle. But
subtlety is a foreign language to him.
Yeah. But again, when Aquaman says, we're asking this kid to do, because again, he's a cyborg or not. Victor is still a kid. He's 20 years old, maybe. Right. And he's saying, dude, he just lost his father. This isn't fair. And
he lost his mom within the last year. As well. And so he's lost both his parents in a year.
And he's lost a lot of his humanity, at least in the physical sense.
Yeah.
And again, I think this plays later on at the end of the movie where Aquaman, or where Arthur's like, at the very end, he was like, I think I'm going to go see my father.
Yeah.
And I love that because
none of the other characters can.
Yeah, that's true.
Barry can, but it's through a glass partition.
Yeah. And that's what
Zeus is long gone for Wonder Woman. Thomas Wayne is the reason Bruce is Batman, and Jonathan, died a martyr.
Yeah. And
self-made,
so
monstrous martyr.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those moments where a character is kind of coming around towards, even though he still ends up having kind of like to be pushed in Aquaman to become the hero for Atlantis.
Right.
At least he's not no longer, moving from place to place. He's going to see his father. And so I love that moment in there. About Superman, I love your line, the loadout screen. It's kind of like, okay, what's your loadout?
Right.
But one of the things I told my brother when I sent him, I told him how much I like this movie, and I said Superman was actually Superman.
Yeah.
In this movie.
So like the fight with Steppenwolf, you were 100%.
Yes. And we actually get to see how badass he is, where he just kept hitting Steppenwolf. He's like, well, first of all, the whole not impressed.
Right.
I was kind of hoping he would say it in GSP's accent.
Oh God. So, no, like, and the way he just kind of was like, and like just kind of the little breath, because in the Justice League he gave it like the full like. Sorry guys, I didn't mean to blow into your ears, but this is the ASMR section of the podcast. Anyway, but no, that was great, and then he broke it like super easy. And I loved how he was going between the ground and pound and the heat vision.
Yeah. It's just like stay down.
You are a sick dude. I love it. Like he's like, I've been dead. I got some things to work out. Anyway, but when he cut his horn off.
Yeah. With this heat vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You know what this scene reminded me of was in I can't remember what cartoon it was, but when Superman fights Darkseid
in the Justice League Unlimited.
And he's like, I always have to hold back.
Well, hold on. So the whole thing is like Darkseid is coming to take over the planet, and he's put all these like essentially fusion bombs around the planet that will create the fire pits of apocalypse on Earth. And the Justice League and the Legion of Doom, words are hard, team up, and it comes down to Batman, Lex, and Superman fighting Darkseid. Lex takes off. Batman actually is the first person ever to avoid the Omega Beam in that universe. And then Darkseid is kicking the crap out of Superman. And then Batman makes like a last stand, and Darkseid said, "Only human." And then Superman stands up and like just punches him through the wall of the basement of the Daily Planet. And as he's coming out doing the thing that I would love to do, to just fly with your feet just off the ground, he says, I live in a world made of cardboard. I have to always be careful not to go too far to hurt something or someone. But you can take it, can't you, big man? What we have here is a rare opportunity for me to show you how powerful I really am. In which he proceeds, feet still never touching the ground, to fly forward, punch him in a downward haymaker to the point where he goes flying through 4 buildings, like maybe 20 city blocks. And then Superman super speeds in front of him and double axe handle down into the ground. Like, it's a badass scene. It is great.
I love that scene.
And that
absolutely
is
love it.
I actually have that audio just as a clip, because like I love it. It's like if I'm ever feeling like really down about myself, there's 2 things I'll do. I'll watch the movie Chef, or because
great movie.
If you're creative at all, watch Chef. And if you ever are having a moment where like you are struggling with creativity, watch Chef. And then the other thing is, if you're ever just feeling down, like, there are things in the world that you have no control over, but like we all have power, and not superpowers, but we all have power. And it is just a great reminder that like what you do in life makes waves and ripples, and like you can affect people in a very positive way, or negative way, but try to affect people in a positive way. But you're absolutely right. Like the way, like, in the Justice League, Steppenwolf got the best of Superman several times, which I thought was stupid. In this time, like, we get the OP Superman that we should get, and I loved it.
Yeah.
The
And I
redemption
will
of
also
Superman
say,
in this movie is the thing that saves this for me from giving it a
yeah.
much lower score.
So also I must say I liked how the Justice League themselves, when they're fighting Steppenwolf,
Mm-hmm.
actually don't get the floor mopped up with them
No,
as they
they
did
hold
in
their
the
own. They hold their own.
yeah, yeah. They can't beat him, but at least they're giving him good licks. In the other one, it was like without Superman, they're done. Well,
Right.
which again,
Yeah.
and one of the things I like from if this was so I'm separating this into two different ways
Okay.
because I know this. Okay, I assume this is Zack Snyder's last hurrah in the DCEU. I'm okay with this, but if this wasn't, I would have had an issue with. And that is how again, when I said earlier the Flash was the hero of this movie because he uses his super speed to go back in time after the mother boxes merge into the Unity
Mm-hmm.
and start the explosion.
Right.
It I think this was only okay because now if they would have done the way it was done, so I'm not going to go with the ifs and maybes. With the way it played out here, I'm fine with it just because I'm thinking this is Zack Snyder's last hurrah. But I would have, if this was a part of, because it was supposed to be, I think, Justice League 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
If this was part 1 of Justice League trilogy, I would have had a major problem if they would have ended it or if they would have already used Flash going back in time
Right.
to reverse something. Even though I like, again, so I'm looking at it in two different ways. I like it for what it is in this movie, but if this was where Zack Snyder wanted to go, I think it would have been a big mistake to use that in the first movie like
Right.
this.
Okay, so in response to this exact same thing, I have dozens of other actors could have pulled off the Flash better than Ezra Miller. His self-pet talk was so cartoony and cringy. I almost
No,
threw up
I
in
didn't.
my mouth.
I wasn't a fan. Yeah.
Oh, and fuck time travel. So, then my next note is, well, Steppenwolf finally got ahead.
Dude, that was a brutal death.
Dude, yeah, I mean, like, he was gloating, and Arthur got him with the fork, and then Soups punched him through the hole, and Wonder Woman finished the job. And just think about just knowing about like physics, right? She cut his head off, and both of those things, his head separated from his body, one thing with much more mass than the other, kept flying through. That's how much of a perfect sharp blade she has. So,
Yeah.
To quote Fortune Fire, it will kill.
So, I didn't like how Barry was talking to the self, like you said, the self-talk itself. I didn't mind what he was saying. I had a problem with him actually saying it out loud.
Yeah.
It would have been better. And again, this sounds like a trope because movies use this a lot, but it would have been similar to Superman when, again, that scene where he's Jor-El and Jonathan are, they're going back and forth. I love that. That gave me chills when I saw that. Just
it was great.
By listening to what they're doing. It was great.
Yeah.
A scene like that works better if the person is hearing, whoever that person is that said that to them in their heads instead of saying it out loud themselves. So that took a little bit away from me in that regard, in that scene itself, where it could have been so much more powerful. It just came off as like,
you're a wiener.
Didn't quite work for me. So
go back to the Teen Titans Wally West. Wait, no, Bart Allen.
Yeah, and then and again, going back like Apocalypse. I keep saying that. Darkseid, and Desaad's like, I told you he was gonna fail.
So here's the thing. I feel like the Darkseid should have been in there watching Steppenwolf's head land, most of his head and his body land on the ground. I feel like though, because there probably aren't going to be any more of these. Oh, holy crap. Hold on. So, because there aren't going to be any more of these, they should have cut that out with Darkseid and Desaad and Granny Goodness and all of the all of the Terror Demons. Hey, real quick, this has nothing to do with basketball. Oral Roberts becomes the second 15 seed ever to go to the Sweet 16 after beating number 7 Florida. So,
oh wow,
yeah. Anyway, sorry, dude. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they should not have included that if there's not going to be any more of these. Now, if they want to continue this without Zack Snyder, great. Find a really good like action-y storyteller. James Wan,
Yes.
I think, might be a good candidate for this. Honestly, if you give her a writer, Patty Jenkins can direct this. Just she needs someone else writing it, George Lucas
Yes.
style. You know, I mean, George Lucas can come up with the story, but like have someone write the teleplay and then someone direct. I think Patty needs someone who can come up with the story, someone to write the teleplay, and then she can direct, because I think that's where her strength lies. But yeah, I like, you know, if they're not going to do that, they shouldn't have left it in. And then as they were all like getting on top of the nuclear smokestack, super lifting Batman up like a dad pulling a kid out of a pool made me laugh.
that you know, watching it the second time, that I did chuckle at that. Like everybody else is just like, dude, where you been? And then Batman is just like,
one thing, there was a scene when they were fighting their way through downtown, you know, East radiation Russia, where the Batmobile is jumping, Wonder Woman's jumping, Flash is in there, Cyborg is flying, and Aquaman is jumping, and it was like a freeze frame. That also made me throw up in my mouth, just like it did in Avengers Age of Ultron when they did the same thing, and just like the A4 scene in Endgame.
yes, that when I saw that scene, I immediately thought Age of Ultron.
I took a picture of it and sent it to you. I was like, this is crap.
Yeah. When you said it, I knew what you were talking about. Like I knew exactly what you were talking about, where you're like, there's this scene. I was like, I know what he's talking about, because I thought the same thing.
Yep.
And, you know, there was some great action in there in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's still some issues with the coloring, but I liked it better than Joss's version.
Yeah.
With the coloring, it just seemed, for me, it flowed better.
Well, Joss had that weird pink sky.
Yeah, it was,
and again, it was oversaturated.
Yeah,
I hate the Terror Demons, or Parademons, not Terror Demons, the Parademons. I hate them in both versions. I think they look stupid. Mm-hmm. They look too human, you know, like the mix of like, they're kind of like Brundlefly, from The Fly. With the Jeff Goldblum version, but yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I will say, so this ends right with them standing tall, and I would have been okay if it just ended right there.
Yes.
So we get two parts of an epilogue. The first part is Joe Morton's voiceover, which was really cool, and you know, kind of seeing where everybody's going. You know, Vic is doing his thing. He puts the analog tape recorder magically back together, and the literal tape with magnetic tape, in there back together magically.
So what I was going to ask you, I was like, is he like technokinetic or whatever in that regard?
I guess. I mean, I don't ever remember that being one of his powers. But
it would have actually
I'm also
made
not infallible in my Teen Titans knowledge, so
yeah,
you know.
I was going to say it would have made more. Well, one, it would have been made much more sense if it was an MP3, like you said. But it would have made more sense if he would have gotten the information off of the magnetic tape.
Yeah, I still think it should. Like who? Well, like, okay. Here's the thing, though. A scientist like Silas is not going to use a magnetic tape player, because he's going
he's not.
He's going to constantly be recording and putting things on tape, and he's going to have to carry a bag of those micro cassettes around.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I have like 50 of those things in my steamer trunk from my journalist days. Of those little tapes, I have 3 of those tape players because they constantly broke. Before I found a brand that I liked, and I kept one in my office, I kept one with me at all times, and I kept one in my bag. You know, so there's that. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was cool. The Martian Manhunter. Oh wait, no, that didn't happen yet. It should have just everything should have just ended when Soups started to strip down and we saw the black and silver Raiders Superman color scheme.
Yes. And again, I love again, we're talking about Joe Morton here.
Yep.
I love his voiceover and how we see the team, kind of doing their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have been fine with it ending there when Superman, is in the alley and then pulls open his shirt.
Yes.
Instead, we get, we get a different post credit with, the same post credit with Lex Luthor and Deathstroke, but with a different outcome.
Right.
And I'm assuming that was going to be the thing if they were going to do a bat flick.
Yeah, I think so.
Batman. Because it made sense where he's like, Batman's name is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
That would have made sense. That would have been perfect for, so Deathstroke's going to be the main antagonist in that movie.
Yeah. Instead of saying, hey, now there's something to celebrate, you know what Deathstroke should have said to him? He should have said, snitches get stitches, and cut his head off.
That would have been awesome, actually. And then we get a scene that even the first time I saw it, I liked it, but I was like, why is this in here?
Are you talking about the nightmare scene?
Sense. Yes.
Okay, so I call that epilogue 2, and my note literally says, cool concept, but barf. So Jared Leto is still not a very good Joker. He was way better this time than in Suicide Squad.
Yes. And again, I like the concept. It didn't need to be there. It was, it's putting sprinkles on a cake that's already sugary enough. But I think this was, again, back to what you said to me a couple days ago. This was the self-indulgent part of Zack Snyder, because even he said it would have been a shame if he didn't get a chance to direct the scene with Batman and Joker together. And this was his way of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just, again, it's one of those things that just wasn't necessary in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. No, you're right. And then you get Martian Manhunter showing up to talk to Bruce after he's woken up from his nightmare. And you're gonna like this. Zack Snyder's Martian Manhunter and Tim Riggins have a lot in common, and it's not stealing a cripple's girl. So they are both cowards.
So yeah, and again, if you were gonna have Martian Manhunter in this movie, I would have been fine having him in this scene alone versus the whole, I'm going to play like I'm Martha Kent, then I'm actually the general. So I don't mind him being here. But again, this is one of those things that it was more, I would absolutely say, I know a lot of this movie, the fact that this movie got made is fan service in the best possible way.
Yeah.
But this is an example of fan service or overly doing Easter eggs that aren't quite necessary. Right. Yes, it was really cool to see Martian Manhunter. I won't lie.
Well, and it was called Unite the Seven. That's what all those posters said. So, and apparently he shot a Green Lantern scene. Yes. Which we learned from the Geeks and Gamers stuff that we talked about in the episode this week. That he shot a scene with a Green Lantern, and he was told, if you put this in the movie, we're not putting it out. So he didn't. So maybe that'll come out as like part of like the DVD or something if they ever put that out. So, and then the movie again ended on such a low note with the music. So it started with a really beautiful piano version of Hallelujah, which is apparently Zack Snyder's favorite song because it's in every movie he's ever made except for 300, I feel like. I don't know if it's in Sucker Punch. I don't remember Sucker Punch. I've tried to erase that from my brain pan. But then we get to the vocals of this version of Hallelujah. And so I have in credits, Piano version of Hallelujah equals beautiful. Vocal versions of Hallelujah equals brown note. Like, seriously, like the what was her name? I had it pulled up and I just lost it. There we go. So Alison Crow. While at point she's a Canadian singer, so that explains it. She's Canadian. You know, apparently she performed this song at his stepdaughter's funeral, which, you know, is the reason he didn't get to finish, because she killed herself. But this is not a good version, and like everything else in this movie, it's overly long. I don't know how much you know about the song Hallelujah, like the history of it and how Leonard Cohen has approached the song over the years. But
No, I don't know.
There are like close to 20 actual verses to the song, and whenever a different songwriter takes it, they typically stick with the first 2 verses, and then they will pick and choose from the rest of the available verses to make a radio playable version of the song. I felt like this had like all 20 verses in it because it went on forever. And she did the vibrato or whatever thing, as I call it, warbling on every word.
So I will have to say that I did not even pay attention to that. I think I was in such a high after the movie. I don't even know if I think I actually kind of turned it off right away. I think I take that back. I had to turn it off because I actually had to, you know, I started watching this at 4 a.m. the first time. Not purposefully, but because I couldn't sleep. So I actually had to get to work. So after this, you know, I was done at around 8:30. So once the credits started rolling, I just turned it off. So I didn't actually hear that. And then the second time I watched it, same thing. I didn't pay attention to this. So this part did not affect me like it was. Did you? But it sounds, again, we've talked about this. One of the things we do agree on is the musical choices in this movie left a lot to be desired. They took away from scenes that, and now granted, some of the scenes that they were in, honestly, we did not need those scenes. But for whatever those scenes were trying, it took away because they did not flow. They did not, mesh with what was going on. On screen.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. So, all right. Now comes the time out of severed partial Steppenwolf heads. Out of 10.
Okay, good. We're going 10s.
Yeah, we're going 10. Now I will say I gave Justice League a 7. Which I really regret. Like I kind of want to delete that episode because looking at Justice League, the Justice League, I probably should have given it, even listening to my review, I was overly kind to it. I should have given it closer to a 5.
I was about to ask what was your retcon score.
So like 4.5 to 5. So for me, out of severed partial Steppenwolf heads, I would say I would give this like a 6.5. I kind of put this on par with like Deadpool 2, which I enjoyed parts of, but I didn't really like, if that makes sense.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I will say I loved everything Superman, and I'm really sad that everything good with Superman was in the last 53 minutes of the movie. If I ever watch it again, because I've watched it twice now, you're welcome, people. I will probably just skip to the Superman parts.
So for me, and I like how you say partial severed.
Well, he's missing a horn.
I know, right? So for me, I would have given Justice League probably a 4, the original.
Okay.
And this one, and again, I told everyone who before this came out, this is, I had no doubt this was going to be a better movie. No, there was like no doubt.
Yeah.
However, I still was cautious about what we were going to get. And I must say, I was incredibly surprised how much I like this movie. I will give this an 8.2. I don't want to go 8.5, so I'm going to go 8.25 out of 10.
Okay.
And this is one of those movies I'm going to watch the hell out of this movie. I probably won't watch it for a while, because after this, I'm going to finish it up again. And because it's a 4-hour movie, I might every now and then just, hey, let me watch part 1 of this. Then let me watch part 2 of this, or 3, because 4 hours is a lot. That's a lot of movie, and again, I would have liked this a lot better. Not liked it a lot better, but it would have been easier to watch over again if they cut out 30, 40 minutes of it.
If this was closer to the 2 hour and 45 to 3 hour and 20 minute range.
Yes.
This would I can I'm not going to go through right now because we're coming up on 2 hours for this overly bloated, self-indulgent podcast. But hey, we're going with the source material here. But I like, there's a solid hour that I could go through and like pick what I would cut out to get down to 302.
Yeah, they're like one after my first
and that's not
viewing,
saying I'm just going to cut the Flash out because I hate him, but like in this movie, which is sad because I love the Flash. He's one of my favorite characters.
No, I will say, like, when I first finished watching it, my thought was, as much as I loved it, I was like, they probably could have cut out, and without me kind of thinking of the scenes themselves, I said they probably could have cut out 30 minutes of this movie, and it would have been a tighter movie. So I absolutely can see where you could say, hey, we could cut out this, and I'd say at least half of those, maybe even more, I would agree with.
Yeah.
So, but again, I'm extremely surprised how much I like this movie.
Yeah.
And again, I had to watch it a second time because I was like, okay, is this just the adrenaline from watching it the first time that I liked it so much, or do I actually really like it this much?
Yeah.
So, and I thought, the first time, again, that's like scenes like when you think about Infinity War and Endgame, it's the same thing. It's like, I know this was good. I know I liked it, but did I like it as much as I really thought I did? And I did. I love this movie. So yeah, I will be watching it again and again.
Cool. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I think the kid, she'll probably watch it at some point. It's rated R. It's rated R because they say the F word like 3 times, and I think that's about it. Maybe because Steppenwolf gets beheaded. But yeah.
Oh, and to your point, the saddest thing about it is where it looks like we probably won't get Henry Cavill as Superman again.
No, but we might get him as Captain Britain, which means we might get an which means we might get an Excalibur movie, which would make me happy. But we need mutants before that can happen. So
yes, that would be awesome.
Anyway, all right. I've
come to where we want you, Henry.
No,
Warner's doesn't know what they're doing.
Just keep making Witcher's TV shows.
Yes, that too.
Don't do 8-episode Witcher seasons. Do 10-episode Witcher seasons, and do 1 season every 8 months. We'll be good to go.
Yes, we're not asking for much here, Henry.
Yeah, Darryl likes his ovaries exploding, dude. We need more Henry Cavill. Do you have a Anna that Star Wars girl esque latex super simp Henry Cavill outfit that you like to put on?
No, I don't.
Do you have a heart tattoo with HC on it?
No, I do have a new Geralt of Rivia McFarlane Toys figure that came in a couple weeks ago.
Oh, those are cool.
Pretty awesome.
At least the pictures were. So, I got the new Damian Wayne one, and I love it.
Yeah, that one looks nice.
It's legitimately the best McFarlane toy. I actually have the Damian right next to the Cyborg, the Teen Titans cartoon version of Cyborg. So
yeah, I was debating on getting that because when I actually looked at it, I said that looks like one of the best figures I've seen. Like having it at hand, but just looking at it.
Yeah, my Batman Beyond will be here soon, so that's exciting too. Anyway, all right. On that note, thank you all for listening again to our self-indulgent, now almost 2 hours on the Nose podcast review of the Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League.
Zack Snyder cut of the Justice League.
The Sack, not Zach. Sack. He's Zack Snyder again. You know, he didn't have to do a lot to like really get this right, and he did too much and got it wrong.
I would say that to wipe the taste out of our mouths from the 2017 version, he just had to go with most of what he did, his vision. And he did that. He got that right. And he didn't do... I think it could have been better because there was some self-indulgence there. Mm-hmm. But overall, I think he did a fantastic job of wiping from my eyes and my mind what we got in 2017.
So I wonder if like the ultimate cut of BVS, if this will be the only version on YouTube or on HBO Max.
I didn't know that the ultimate cut was the only version on there.
Yeah, it's the only one on there now. So, all right, we're over 2 hours. Bye.
See ya.
No, actually, thank you guys for listening. Let us know what you thought of the Snyder Cut if you're listening at this point. If you are listening at this point, email me at Brian@InfamousPodcast and I'll send you something cool. All right. That's it.
Later.
Bye. The Infamous Podcast is recorded in Kings Mills, Ohio, just north of Cincinnati. You can find new episodes every Sunday on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast, our website, or anywhere podcasts are downloaded. This show is hosted by Darryl Jasper and me, Brian Tudor. To find more information about the show, visit us at infamouspodcast.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Infamous Podcast to keep up with the show. We also have a Patreon page, patreon.com/infamouspodcast. We have some great rewards for our patrons and are looking for help to grow the show to bring you more of the content you want to hear. Music for this podcast is provided by Michael Henry from MeetMichaelHenry.com. So, whenever you're listening to us, have a great day, night, evening, weekend, whenever it is, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.